out to the right. Caught over the middle and into.
He's at the 45. Are you kidding? Oh, he's going to go. Oh.
Redding is hit. The ball is out. And Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the Twitter page, make sure you check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. But if you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show, head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, but it is the best place to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up and to be interactive with each and every one of our shows here on DSM Media. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him as well at Scotty Drown. My man, divisional round weekend is here. How are you feeling?
So it was what? Eager on Thursday, yeah. I believe it was the word. Now today,
I believe that was Monday. That was Monday, right?
Oh, that was Monday. Oh, wow. See, the week flew. It feels like yesterday. So, no, I would say today the feeling is anxious. I'm anxious to get started and see what this Birds team looks like. But nonetheless, great weekend of football ahead. I love the matchups across the board. All good matchups in my eyes. But yeah, I'm ready to get into it, man. We'll have some drinks after this and get the day really started, but it's a great way to kick it off.
Yeah, I'm anxious to just put the talking aside to bed. I'm just anxious to get into
That's where I'm
Giants
at.
matchup.
Yeah.
Scotty and I will not be breaking down that Eagles-Giants matchup on Turf Talk right now. We'll be doing that on DSM pregame live in a little while, so head on over to that on the YouTube channel to catch our predictions and analysis on the game. But we will be breaking down the other three matchups for the divisional round right now.
Yep.
And I agree with you. You mentioned how the matchups all look entertaining and all look tough. And I would argue that these were probably the best possible outcomes, right? You have Dallas and San Fran matching up, Cincinnati and Buffalo out in the AFC, NFC in the AFC, NFC East battle between the Giants and the Eagles rather than seeing the Vikings again. You could argue maybe the Chargers, Chiefs because of the division, Herbert, Mahomes, but with the way that this Jacksonville team with Doug Peterson is playing right now and Trevor Lawrence, it looks to be a good matchup in Arrowhead today. So let's start there with that one. The Jags head into Arrowhead Stadium to take on the 1-seed Chiefs at 9-point underdogs today at 4:30. I told you basically that Trevor Lawrence maybe said the dumbest thing on the planet, whether he was just trying to rally his own troops or talk his own fan base up. I don't think it was too smart for him to say that, just on an intellectual standpoint. But how are you feeling about this game itself?
It's an interesting game. Obviously, there's about a 9-point spread in Kansas City's favor. Rightfully so. They're playing at home, right? They're the experienced team. But there's just so many narratives that kind of feed into this game. You can start right with Doug Peterson kind of being the apprentice of Andy Reid, going up against Andy Reid. Who knows Andy Reid's tendencies as a play caller, play designer more than Doug Peterson, right? The guy that kind of started in Kansas City with Andy Reid. So it's an interesting game. I don't know really, how to feel about it in a sense, because there's part of me that feels like don't sleep on the Jacksonville Jaguars. You saw what they could do last week, even down 27-0. They came, rallied back. They never give up. They're resilient. But then on the other side of it, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. This is a Super Bowl team that they've won a Super Bowl before. They have that core there. And it seems like they religiously get to the AFC Championship, right? So it would almost feels too wrong for the Chiefs to lose this game today. But there is a weird feeling to it, I would say, for the Jags, just because what they've been able to do over this second half of the season. And they can score the ball. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Chiefs defense is not that great. It's not that good. They can get pressure on the QB. That's one way they can disrupt Trevor Lawrence, cause some turnovers. But the Jags, they boast a top 10 offense in points and yards per game. So, I mean, they can score the rock, which makes me think they can hang around with this Chiefs team at least.
So you hit on a couple of big things there. And it's funny because I'm looking at these 2 1-seeds playing today. And again, we're not going to talk about this Eagles-Giants matchup, but what do you keep hearing about the Giants? They're hot.
Yeah.
They're this team. They're this '07 team. They're streaky.
Yeah.
That should be spoken about the Jacksonville Jaguars. The
Yeah.
Jags
That's
are the
fair.
hot underdog against the 1 seed. They're streaky. Trevor Lawrence is balling out right now. Their head coach has that culture really changed around as well, right? So all the things that people are uttering about the 3-6-1 New York Giants should be said about the Jags team, who actually are hot and more of underdogs in this game as well. You said how long can they hang around? I have that written down here because I mean that by 2 things. The longer they're able to hang around, the scarier it becomes. But they cannot get down early like they did last week. Trevor Lawrence, that is the biggest key to me for Jacksonville to stay around in this game. Trevor Lawrence has to protect the football in the first half. I know he was outstanding in the second half. 4 passing touchdowns, comes back from 27-0 at home. They ultimately get the win. It was amazing to watch. You get down 21-0. Hell, you get down 17-0 against this Chiefs team.
Yeah.
Say goodnight. They're not allowing you to come back in this game. They do not have Brandon Staley. They are not conservative. They will not punt on 4th and inches from the 40-yard line, right? So you have to not only come out and hang around for a majority of this game. Trevor Lawrence has to protect the football. I know the Chargers ended up. It's weird because I'm basically saying if he turns the football over, the Chiefs are going to make him pay. When in reality, the Chargers made them pay. The Chargers scored points on every one of their turnovers. But the Chiefs will not allow that comeback as the Chargers did. That's my.
And it won't just be 3, right? It'll be 7.
Yeah, it'll be 6.
It's going to be
7 every time.
7s across the board. So yeah, you can't afford to do that against the Chiefs. I have that written down here as well. You can't turn it over against Kansas City. And then on the other side of things, I would say, can Jacksonville get some turnovers or at least one turnover today against Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense? Because you have to do something to flip this game, right? Same thing like Hembo said about how the Giants can beat the Eagles, bunch of turnovers. Right. That's what
Miami did against Buffalo,
Kansas City. Exactly. We would need to see a 2 interception type of game from Patrick Mahomes, or maybe he gets sacked in a strip fumble, something like that. The Jacksonville defense is 5th in turnovers on the season. They have 27 total on the season. So they've done a good job of it this season. You obviously saw what they were able to do against Dak in that game against the Cowboys when they were able to win that. That was another game where they weren't favored in, right? So that's a huge point. Turnovers, as we've discussed all season, they're top 3 most important things in an NFL game when you're trying to win it. The other thing that I would point out is on the other side of that, you talk about Kansas City taking risks. Doug Peterson, you have to take those risks today. And I think that's another reason why Jacksonville can stay in this game, because they do have a coach that is willing to take those risks that will keep you in the game. Because if you don't take them, that it's almost like, if you take that risk, you may not get it. It may not come out successful. But if you don't take that risk, you're going to lose anyways. And I think if you would operate by that mindset, and obviously Doug Peterson does, I think that's another benefit for the Jacksonville Jaguars in this game. It is interesting, man, because this isn't like it's a juggernaut Kansas City offense, but that defense, as we mentioned already throughout this show, they get good pressure on the quarterback. They can cause turnovers. They're opportunistic, but they're not a good statistical defense. They're not going to stop the run. They're not going to stop the pass majority of the time, right? But they can get turnovers. They can sack the quarterback. But the thing that makes it interesting is the fact that Jacksonville does have a very good offense, a very high-scoring offense that can kind of match Kansas City. It's is Kansas City going to disrupt? I go ahead. What's your next point? Because I'm getting ahead of myself.
No. I love it because it's exactly what you just said about Kansas City's defense is exactly what I was going to bring up. So this conversation is great because they're opportunistic. They can get after the quarterback. Spagnuolo is aggressive, and they've been there before. Like they've never been an overly talented defense, but they've been in AFC championships. They make deep playoff runs every year. It feels like so they're experienced. But would you say that the LA Chargers have a better defense or at least more talent on defense than the Kansas City Chiefs do? When you look at a Joey Bosa, when you look at a Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., Cleo, when you look at all those guys, and look at what Jacksonville was able to do in a single half of football. So I'm looking at this matchup right here, and I'm thinking if you can keep Trevor Lawrence somewhat clean and you take care of the football, I'm spreading Kansas City wide all day long. You have that fast, explosive running back in the backfield that can catch the ball out of the backfield and Travis Etienne. Or if you spread them wide, hit them with a draw and let them take it up the middle or bounce one outside. Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones Jr., spread this defense wide and let Trevor read it and pick his spots up and down the field. I really do think that the Jags can have some success on offense today. The other thing you mentioned with Doug Peterson being aggressive, I don't want to compare it to Miami Buffalo because obviously Trevor Lawrence and the Jags have a better shot than Skylar Thompson did against the Buffalo Bills, right? Yeah. But in the first half, what did Miami keep doing? Field goal. And I'm ripping my hair out because it did keep them in the game technically, but you're never going to be an underdog that comes away with a win by kicking field goals. So Doug Peterson's got this very thin, fine line to walk today where if he's at Kansas City's 22 and it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, do you take the points or do you say 3 is not good enough to beat this team? I got to come up with a play call here and we need to get into the end zone.
Yeah. You have to take the risks, man. It's something that we've talked about. It's been like that. It's been that way for a while when you go against the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
You cannot afford to come away with 3. You definitely cannot afford to come away with no points on a given drive because for all we know, going into a game against Kansas City, they could score every single possession.
If really you turn them over, you need 6.
You need 6. Yes, that's the key. You gotta offset everything that they do because they're that good. I think that's the point here. But basically the keys that I'm looking at today dealing with this game, Doug Peterson taking risks, as you just mentioned there. Kansas City, are they able to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence? So looking at it from Kansas City's side, can they get pressure on him, force him to commit some turnovers? And then on the other side, can Jacksonville turn Patrick Mahomes over? Can they turn that Kansas City offense over? And then does either of these teams, do they decide to establish the run today, right? I know that's a big portion of it. I know the Jags have kind of stepped up in the run defense department in the last few weeks as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who can establish a run in this game as well. Because Kansas City's kind of been coming along with Pacheco. And then you have Etienne, who's super talented on the other side. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see who can get it going on that end.
When I look at keys here, and we look at this Jags team, and we just explained how they're probably going to be able to score points. This is not going to be a duel it out 35-31 type of game if the Jags are going to come away with a win. You are not out dueling that quarterback, that coach in that stadium in the division round. It ain't happening. Ask Josh Allen how it went just a year ago, right? It's not happening. This has to be a classic upset game plan. That you mentioned running the ball. Jacksonville has to be able to establish the run. They have to be able to control time of possession. They have to come away on top of the turnover battle or at least be equal. You cannot lose the turnover battle if you're the Jags, and then Trevor Lawrence has to take care of the basketball. Jesus. He has to take care of the football today because, my God, if, like I said in the very beginning of the show, if they get down early from his turnovers, they're not coming back from that.
I was just reading this comment down here.
Just to let you guys know, everyone at ESPN and sports media all had the Eagles beating the Giants. So where's this coming from? People say the Giants are going to upset the Eagles. I've seen it all week long. And I've said, I mean, it's not mainstream media, I don't think, as much. I've seen major podcast hosts, major podcast co-hosts, different people on social media, reporters coming out and just Bart Scott's on ESPN the other day saying that Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And I'm pulling my hair out.
Based on what? You know what I mean? Whatever. But to his point, I get that. And it's more about fans because I know I don't watch national media for the most part. I mean, every time that I walk by the TV and it's on, all I hear is about Jalen Hurts' injury, as if he's not on the injury report, but that's all that everybody's talking about. That's the only thing that matters today. But yeah, hey, at least I respect Blue City Empire Sports because he's being realistic here today. I mean, Daniel Jones is the main thing that you have to watch if you're the Eagles, but we'll get into that on Eagles pregame Blue City, so you can join us
Yeah.
for that later if you want to chat
For
about
sure.
that game.
Right here on the YouTube channel. But anyway, man, to wrap up this Kansas City Jags matchup, who do you got in this one? And then we'll get into our best bets.
Yes, sir. So I am gonna go with the Chiefs in this one. I've thought hard about it because I like the Jags and I like Doug Peterson. I like the feeling and trust the P and trust the Peterson. But no, the Chiefs are too good. They are the 1 seed, and let's put a little bit of respect on them as well, right? The same thing we want for the Eagles. I'm going to give it to the Chiefs. They earned that position in the playoffs to get that home field advantage. You have Trevor Lawrence kind of adding fuel to the fire. That place is going to be rocking today at 4:30. It's going to be on fire. It's going to be a Red Sea, right? The Arrowhead Stadium. That's just not the tree you want to bark up if you're Trevor Lawrence.
No.
So I think they come out, and I also think there is part of Andy Reid that kind of wants to, show Doug like, hey, you are the apprentice in a sense.
Who's the teacher?
So, and Andy Reid wants this one as well. He wants another Super Bowl. Who doesn't want it at this point? But I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. I think the offense is just too high powered. I think Jags, while they have a high power offense, they will have a few lapses mixed in there, maybe a turnover or two from Trevor Lawrence. Ultimately, I see this game. I'm looking at anywhere from 35 to 38 for the Chiefs. Looking at about 28 to 30 points for the Jags. I think the Jags score today. I think they do score points. I do think they are able to cover that 9-point spread. And maybe it's one of those things where Chiefs get up 14, 17 points at some point in the game, and then the Jags come fighting back to get down by 8 at the end of the game. They don't give up. That's my main thing with that point spread. The Jags don't give up. So if it's a 2-possession game at the end of the game, they'll still go for that 7 or that 8 just to make the score look better or give themselves like that feel, give themselves the feeling of a better chance, right? So yeah, I'll go with the Chiefs. What about you, man?
We got a Chiefs vote in the comments. We have a Chiefs vote and a Jags vote any given Saturday in this case. I got the Chiefs in this one. The Jags are a fun story. They're a great story. And Scotty, you and I are going to be talking about it all offseason. And next year, the Jags are going to be a problem moving forward. They're going to get Calvin Ridley back. They're going to invest on that defense. Trevor Lawrence is going to have another year with Doug Peterson. The Jags should be proud and happy of their season. Unfortunately, that season ends today. It's too much at some point. There's too much talent. There's too much firepower. There's too much experience. Like, that's the biggest thing for me. This Jags team that hasn't been there. I know Doug's been there. This Jags team has not been there. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been there. They're not going to walk into Arrowhead after he essentially calls out the fan base and says, I can't imagine Arrowhead Stadium being much louder than our fans were. Like, come on, man. Like, we're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars or maybe the loudest stadium in the entire National Football League. That stadium's going to be rocking, as you mentioned, that Red Sea. I like the Chiefs in this one, but I do think the Jags are good enough to make it a game. And like you said, even if they get down, 14, 15 late, I think they're good enough to score a touchdown later in that game just to give themselves a sense of pride. I got the Chiefs in this one, but with that said, there's also some money to be made in this game, Scotty. So looking at our best bets, we do have the Jags +9 at the end of the list here. I think that's too wide of a spread, honestly. Like I said, I think they're too talented. They're too high. Believe it or not, offense.
I'm on FanDuel. The line moved to
dropped.
8.5 now. Yeah, it went to 8.5.
Right.
So -104. So they're really playing with our best bets now, right?
All right.
Tease it to +9.
Yeah. Just take a little bit of the juice off, man. But Jags +9. Sticking with the Jags, Evan Engram over 4.5 receptions. We talked a lot about this Chiefs defense. While they're experienced, while they have a good pass rush, they're vulnerable over the middle of the field and on the outside a little bit with their secondary. Evan Engram, Trevor Lawrence looks to him as a little bit of an outlet. Especially if the pressure from Kansas City is being applied early. Look for him to get a couple catches early on in this game. Over 4.5 receptions for Evan Engram. And then to wrap it all off, Jerick McKinnon, anytime touchdown scorer today. I believe Scotty said he scored in the last 6 Chiefs wins.
Scored in the last 6 Chiefs games. Last 6 games of the season. Even in that Raiders game where they just kind of needed to wrap things up, win the conference. He scored 6 in the last 6 games with a total of 8 touchdowns. So he scored multiple touchdowns in a couple of those games as well.
I like
he's used in the passing game. He's used in the running game. But yeah, that is a great point. And even up here. Are we going to see Trevor Lawrence lose his first game on Saturday? Right. That's
Oh,
kind of
true.
a crazy stat.
It's
But
very
yeah,
true.
I love these. I love these props. And just an update on the spread. So if you go, at least on FanDuel, if you go to alternative spreads,
Mhm.
you can go plus 9.5 for the Jags at minus 111 versus plus
See, I
8.5
love
at
that.
minus 104.
You
So
know
it's
what?
not
Make
that
make
much
that the
juice.
best bet, Scotty. Give us the
Yeah.
plus 9.5. Give us the hook there. Forget the plus
Plus
9 straight up.
9.5 minus 111. That's those are good props, especially when you're looking at 8.5 at minus 104. It's not
That's
even worth it
interesting
at that point.
because FanDuel or DraftKings still has them at plus 9. Let me see. Plus 9.5 would be minus 117 on DraftKings. So I like it either way.
Yeah, I like it.
Mahomes, is he? Possibly, probably. I mean,
I have no
the
idea.
dude just hasn't lost many games at
He
all.
doesn't lose very often.
So,
No
so
surprise
he
if he
very
doesn't
well
play
could
many
be
games.
undefeated on some Saturday games and in the postseason so far. I would not be surprised. But let's move on
Absolutely.
to, obviously we're going to skip past this Giants Eagles matchup. We'll get into that on the pregame show in a little
Yes, sir.
while. Let's skip on over to tomorrow. This day is just going to. These final four teams over here is going to be two great matchups, Scotty. Let's start with the first one. Cincinnati at Buffalo. You get that dreaded rematch of the DeMar Hamlin situation on the field in Cincinnati a few short weeks ago on Monday Night Football. Bills get the 2 seed. Obviously, Bengals finish as the 3 seed. Obviously, a lot of love between these two because of the moment they shared, but also probably a little bit of angst towards each other, especially the Cincinnati side for maybe feeling that they got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
For seating wise and home field. What's your initial thought on this one?
The spread is what sticks out to me initially here. So you got what, a 5.5 point spread? Let me just make sure that 5.5 point spread in Buffalo's favor. I find that interesting, honestly, because I just think Cincinnati has been playing the better ball down the stretch. I know Buffalo's won 8 straight, Cincinnati's won 9 straight, but if you really watch the games, it just seems as if Cincinnati has been playing much better. Even last week, Cincinnati looked better. So while I don't mind Buffalo being favored at home, I would just look at it maybe a minus 2.5, minus 3.5 type of situation for Buffalo. So I think it's a little disrespectful in that sense. And to your point, I think those teams, they did bond in a special way on that night. But the very next day when Buffalo flew back to Buffalo, I think that's where that bond breaks. And I think that's where the angst comes in.
A little bit.
A little bit, not it doesn't break. They're not going to go.
It's not cut in half, but it's a little.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
But now you look at it from a football standpoint. Cincinnati, they're feeling shorted in this situation that has played out. They didn't get a chance at home field advantage for the playoffs, right?
Especially for the fact that he's okay, right? Now that he's okay, he's at home.
Now he's okay.
Tweeting, watching the games, he's good. Now your mindset, at least if you're Cincinnati, if you're Buffalo, clearly you're playing for him. That's your brother, that's your friend, that's your teammate. If you're Cincinnati, you might not have that connection. You just have the connection of what happened on that particular night. And that tragedy. Now that he's okay, your head can turn and focus towards the football and business aspect of it.
Exactly. And think about how you did get kind of shorted out of a chance at the 1 seed, right? Like they do
100%.
have a chip on their shoulder.
100%.
And on the other side of it, not only with what happened with the playoff scenario and basically canceling that game, making it not count, the NFL has began selling tickets to the Kansas City Chiefs Bills AFC Championship at a neutral site. So, like, Joe Mixon came out, said something about this. He said it's ultra disrespectful, but we're going to go out here and show
because it is. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to come out and say it. I leave my predictions for the end normally. No, the Cincinnati Bengals are winning this game. If I had tomorrow's best bet, plus 5.5 will definitely be on it because I like them outright. But if you're going to give me 5.5 points, I'm freaking taking it in that game.
Absolutely.
The Bengals are winning this game, and for a couple of reasons. You and I broke down the Bengals-Ravens game from last weekend on Thursday. And essentially, we went back and looked. They scored 24 points. 7 of it was the fumble recovery touchdown, so they only scored 17. Burrow was fine. He threw for like 204, 210, whatever the case was. He didn't turn the ball over. I think Mixon ran for like under 40 yards. Chase
Right.
had 9 for 84. Higgins had like 30 yards. Boyd had like 20 yards, whatever the case was. You are not limiting. You are not shutting down that offense, that firepower for a second week straight.
Second straight week.
It's not
Yeah.
happening, man. So that's the first point. My other point, I trust Joe Burrow more than I trust Josh Allen at the moment. It's essentially what KC said right here. It is Burrow greater than Josh Allen at this point. I trust Joe Burrow to take care of the football more than Josh Allen. I trust Joe Burrow to make the correct read, make the correct decision in a split-second moment, especially late in the game right now. And I'll add this, Scotty. Buffalo has struggled to run the football. If they struggle to run the football against this Cincinnati front today, and it has to be a Josh Allen show, I don't trust him enough to not give up at least 2 turnovers. I just don't at this point. Maybe he proves me wrong. The kid's a top 3, possibly top 2 quarterback in the league. When I sound like I'm disrespecting him, I'm not. Like, he's that talented.
Yeah.
Maybe he throws for 350, 4 touchdowns, and doesn't turn the ball over and they win. I don't think that happens. I think he's not got the yips because he threw for 350 and 3 touchdowns last weekend. But, man, this kid makes some mind-boggling mistakes. He holds on to the ball for too long. He takes unnecessary hits. He makes the wrong read, and he'll throw into quadruple coverage at times. Joe Burrow will protect the football today. Josh Allen will not, and the Cincinnati Bengals offense will get off first and early, and they will win the game.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give you my keys here because I think you hit a lot of points here, and they match a lot of my keys to this game. The first one being, does Josh Allen turn the ball over? And that's the biggest question of tomorrow, right? Will Josh Allen turn that ball over? And the reason I asked that question even further, not just because they had the situation against the Miami Dolphins. I apologize, Dylan. My screen just froze here, so I'm wondering what is going on.
Oh, you're good. You're still talking on my end. If not, I'll move it along. But keep going. We'll see. Have your phone handy.
Let me know,
Yeah.
bro. But looking at this game, Josh Allen. Not only is it Josh Allen turning the ball over against the Dolphins last week, it's the fact that the Bengals defense is so opportunistic. That is what their calling card is, right? They get turnovers, they score points off the turnovers. We saw it last week. It won them the game against the Ravens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So looking at it from that standpoint, you absolutely can't turn the ball over. And then to your next point, which team can run the ball?
And there goes my man, Scotty. He'll be back in just a few moments. But before we move on to the San Francisco-Dallas matchup, just a little bit more on the Cincinnati-Buffalo game tomorrow afternoon, and to pick up where he was. I don't know why I have. It's not a dislike. It's not a distaste for Josh Allen. I don't trust him in a big moment at all. And maybe that's crazy because the last time we saw him, obviously prior to last week against Miami, the last time we had seen him in a big playoff matchup, he went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, maybe the greatest talent of our lifetime. And you could argue should have won that game, right, if it wasn't for his defense and Tyreek Hill. And if he gets to touch the ball at all in overtime, they changed the rule because of it. For this year, I don't trust him. He almost led the league in interceptions. You watched last week against Miami. That is a bad Miami Dolphins team without Tua Tagovailoa. It just is. And they didn't start Teddy. They didn't start Teddy Two Gloves. They went straight to Skylar Thompson, the rookie 7th round pick, undrafted, whatever he was. Skylar Thompson was horrible. 18 for 45, multiple turnovers. When Josh turned the ball over, his defense bailed him out and held Miami to 3 on multiple occasions. But yet, somehow, some way, it was a 3-point game, and Miami had a chance with the ball to either tie or win the game at the end. I don't trust him in this moment against Joe Burrow. Scotty mentioned it. The Bills have won, 8, 9 in a row? The Bengals have won more on their win streak. So both teams are extremely hot. I trust Joe Burrow more. I trust Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Hayden Hurst, Samaje Perine. I trust that rushing attack for Cincinnati more than I do Devin Singletary and is Zach Moss or whoever else is in the backfield there in Buffalo. As a New York Giants fan, I have respect for you guys. You guys keep it real. Appreciate it, dude. Respect for you too, and appreciate you commenting throughout the show. Like Scotty said, I'm trying to get to all your comments, but we're going to talk about the Eagles-Giants game in probably about a half hour or so you can join us over on the YouTube channel there. Let's see. Is he back? There he is. Better than ever.
All right, man. Oh, my goodness.
How are we? All good
We're
on the
good,
phone
man.
now?
Yeah, we're on the phone now. I have no idea. I thought I fixed the issue with the laptop, but
Eh,
here we are again.
Gotta take it to
Where
that
are we
Apple
at?
store.
Where are we at?
Well, I just wrapped up about how I just don't trust Josh Allen.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think I was talking about which team can run the ball, but just ending that point, and then Ken Cincy. The one thing that I would watch out for Cincy's side, just to kind of wrap up this game, can Cincinnati protect Joe Burrow? That's kind of the big question for them. Their offensive line's a little beat up. Can they keep Joe Burrow off his back against Buffalo? Buffalo doesn't nearly, in my opinion, they don't have the pass rush that the Ravens have even. So I think the Bengals ultimately will be fine. I'll go ahead and tell you with you on that standpoint. I'm taking the Bengals in this one. If you watch Turf Talk, you probably would have guessed that. Anyways, I've been on the Bengals since like last year, but yeah, I think they're just the more mentally tough team. I think they, while Buffalo's riding this high, inspiration, motivational thing with DeMar Hamlin, I get that, but at the same time, they were riding that last weekend and almost lost to the Miami Dolphins. So you look at this team in the Cincinnati Bengals, it's a much, much better version of the Miami Dolphins. It's still that explosive offense with those receivers. Quarterback is better than Skylar Thompson, obviously. And then obviously the Bengals defense is much, much better than the Dolphins as well. So I think the Bills struggle tomorrow, but maybe they surprise us. Maybe they return to pristine form tomorrow and win this game. I wouldn't put it past them, but I'm going to trust Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
But I'm not going to predict it. I agree
Yeah.
with you. Final thing, you mentioned the pass rush and keeping Barrow off his back, and that's essentially what cost Cincinnati a shot at the Super Bowl last year and coming away with that victory. You saw it all playoff run, how much he was hit and put on his ass. I feel as though Baltimore probably, like we talk about limiting that offense and putting Barrow on his back, I feel like Baltimore threw the knockout punch at Cincinnati's offense, and it still wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think another defense is going to give you that caliber of start against this potent offense. I just don't see it. I know it's on the road. Maybe Bills Mafia can make a difference tomorrow afternoon. I don't see it. I think they go home a little bit upset. Cincinnati in this one, especially Cincinnati plus 5.5. So we're 2 for 2 today. Chiefs. So that would mean, Scotty, if this lines up, we get a rematch of the Chiefs-Bengals in the AFC Championship, and that will be exciting to break down next week. Final game of this divisional round weekend wraps up with San Francisco at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott versus Brock Purdy. Initial thoughts on this one. I come in thinking I'm not going to count out the Cowboys. I'm not going to discredit Dak and the Cowboys after what they were able to do against Tom and that Bucs defense on the road last week. But I will say this is a different animal. This is another level of defense, another level of all-around team right now. What's your initial thought process on this game?
Yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts coming into this game, this is one of the closer games this weekend in my eyes. I know Buffalo, we just picked Cincinnati as an upset over Buffalo. I don't know. Part of me just feels like the Cowboys and San Francisco is a better matchup. Maybe that speaks to what I think about the Bengals over the Bills. But nonetheless, the 49ers coming into this one, you look at Brock Purdy. This is what we talked about on, Thursday or Wednesday, whenever we did our previous Turf Talk show. This is where we find out if Brock Purdy is real, right? Going up against Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, right? You're going against this prolific pass rush from the Dallas Cowboys. But then on the other side as well, it's Dak Prescott, right? We've talked about him. He's been a conundrum this season between the hoisting the leading scoring offense since he returned from injury versus league leading interception leader, right? So when do we know? Yes, throw that in. 12 games played for Dak, leads the league in interceptions. Is Dak a good quarterback? We'll find out in this game, week. Right? This comes to truth in this game. So we're gonna find out a lot about these teams that we have not been able to find out this season. And ultimately, I honestly can't wait for it, man. But I'm with you. I'm not counting out the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Quite honestly, I think it's going to be close. I think it could come down to one possession. My big question is which defense is going to be able to stop the run? And my thought process would lead towards San Francisco, obviously. And then you have to think if San Francisco can make Dallas one-dimensional offensively, what does that look like, right? Can Dak have one of those 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdown type of games
Right.
against this San Francisco defense? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself, because I do think San Fran's going to be able to stop the run. On the other side, will Dallas be able to stop CMC?
Correct.
That is going to be the biggest question. We know Dallas is an opportunistic defense. They were very sturdy last week against a washed-up Tom Brady.
With no run game.
With no running game, right? No
Ran the ball
Leonard
maybe
Fournette,
9
that
times.
offensive line is tore up. You're talking about one of the best run games in the NFL in San Fran. And we've seen what CMC has been able to do, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. How are you feeling about this game holistically? I'm kind of torn on it, honestly. It's in San Fran, so I give the advantage to San Fran with that home field advantage, but I'm not discounting the Cowboys by any means here. I think what they did last week was very impressive.
It's funny because neither am I, but the more I'm thinking about it, I'm about to. And hold on, I only say that to say this. I'm not sure who I like in the game yet, but I'm leaning San Francisco for the reasons you just pointed out. I don't think Dallas is going to be able to run the ball with a high volume of success on the road against this team. And I just CMC, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, it's too much, right? Like, and it's too much for that. You know, what is the one Achilles heel of this Dallas team that we've been able to see slow down their pass rush? If you're able to run the ball right at them, well, guess what San Francisco can do better than almost any team in the league? Guess where they can line up CMC? Anywhere. Guess where they can line up Debo? Anywhere, right? But my thought on this is I don't think it's close either way it goes. That's my problem. That's why I feel like I'm counting them out. Whoever wins this game, whether it is Dallas, whether it's San Fran, I think they win by maybe 10 or more. And I say that because it's not going to be a shootout. Both defenses are too good in the divisional round for this to be a 38-35, a 35-28 type of game. I just that's my initial thought process. I also don't think it's going to be 14-13. I don't think it's going to be that low scoring, like a 30-point total. So I think whatever team is able to run the ball with success as you're laying out, and whatever team is able to protect the football ultimately wins this game. And I think they'll have the advantage on offense. And you could see a 24-16, 24-14 type of matchup here. That's just my initial thought. Maybe a little bit higher scoring. I'm not sure. So when I think that it goes one way or the other in a not a blowout, but in a decent sized win, and I'm leaning San Fran, I guess I kind of am discounting Dallas, but I think that they could potentially win as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is fair. The only thing that I would say I'm disagreeing with is I do think this gets pretty high scoring.
Really?
Honestly, I know how good San Fran's defense is. Cowboys offense is really good. They score a lot of points, right? And I think if San Fran is going to win this game, which basically we both said we're picking San Fran at this point, I do think they're going to have to score 30-plus points in this game to beat the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that goes for anybody, quite honestly. I think anybody's going to have to score 30 to 35 points in order to beat the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs, just because that offense is high octane. Even with Dak's turnovers, they tend to score over 30 points, like to give credit where it's due. But
when they score like 6 against the Washington Commanders. I'm just saying.
That is the other point. To be fair, once again, though, they say they were running a vanilla. I didn't watch the game. They would say they were running a vanilla offense similar to what the Eagles did.
Yeah, I mean, you tend to say those things when your quarterback throws a pick six.
But that's the other big thing here. Dak cannot turn the ball over against this San Fran defense. That's going to put them in a hole that they won't be able to get out of. But my keys to this game, Dylan, looking at it from both perspectives, can Dallas get their pass rush after Brock Purdy, right? Can they get him on his back, put some pressure on him, maybe turn him into somebody that he hasn't been throughout this stretch? Can Dallas stop the run? And then, obviously, Dak can't turn the ball over. Those are my 3 keys here.
I love them.
Looking at it from both sides, right? If you're Dallas, you want to win the game, Dak can't turn the ball over. They have to stop the run from the other side. You have to stop that pass rush of Dallas from the San Fran side, and you have to run the ball, right? They should be able to do that, though.
I got a question for you as an Eagles fan.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably not. I'm not rooting. I'm just going to sit back, watch. I'll gamble a little bit on and see how it goes. But if you had to pick in terms of not rooting for, but who do you want the Eagles to play essentially? Not for a benefit reason. Like we were happy to play the Giants because it wasn't the Bucks or the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
In this game, do you want the 2 seed? Do you want that defense? Do you want that matchup? And we want the best of the best, maybe, or do you want the road that is the Giants and then Cowboys? And it's like how awesome that would be as an NFC East Eagles team.
So, from a bone to pick standpoint, as an Eagles fan, I would take either of them in the NFC Championship. I think we have something to prove against both of them. You talk about the Cowboys. We split the season series. Obviously, both quarterbacks didn't start in both games. So you look at it from that standpoint, we can settle that score and finally figure out which team is better in the NFC Championship. From the 49ers standpoint, that's the team that everybody says is clearly better than the Eagles in the NFC. I would love to see that matchup and prove everybody wrong in that sense. But what I would say from Eagles fan, holistically here, I want the Cowboys to lose as soon as possible. And that doesn't have to be to the Eagles, right? It could be to whoever. I want the Cowboys out of the playoffs. I don't want Dak to get any more playoff wins because I don't like the Cowboys. I hate them. So from that perspective, that's what I would say. It's not whether I want the Cowboys or the 49ers more. I think each has like their own things that would concern you, right?
Right.
For the Cowboys, it's the fact that Dak plays really good against the Eagles every single time, right? For the 49ers, it's that defense. That's what you're running into with the 49ers. So from either standpoint, these are the best of the best teams that are left, right? And that's what we're looking at from an opponent standpoint. But from a fan standpoint, send the Cowboys home early. Let's get it done.
I like it, man. There's also a greater risk reward issue with the Cowboys, right? If they were to advance, that week would be nuts, that day would be nuts, and we sent them packing, it would be the biggest reward ever. However, on the reverse, not that I think we would lose, but we get sent home by them and they go to the Super Bowl through the link. You know what I mean? Like that risk reward factor there is huge.
That's something we could never come back from, right? No. In a conversation, an argument, we could never come back from that. I point it back to when Duke played UNC in the Final Four last year. As a Duke fan, you want to knock UNC out of the Final Four. You want to do it on the biggest stage. It's Coach K's last year. We lost that game, and it felt miserable, man. And I can't say anything to UNC fans now. They not only knocked us out of the Final Four, but they ended Coach K's career. So it's one of those things that, while the pressure is good, the situation is great, there is a bad side to that as well. Right. So not that like you said, I'm not going to say that I would pick the Cowboys over the Eagles. No.
Like that, I wouldn't. The Eagles will be favored.
Stakes are very high.
Yeah. So when it's San Fran, it's like, you can move forward with that.
Exactly.
Because then next year, playing devil's advocate, just playing the whole negative side. If you were to lose that game next week to the Cowboys, next year, like every week, it wouldn't even like matter. I would just need to get back to the playoffs and like see what happens then. Because it's like,
I know
they're in our division. They did it. They're our biggest rival. They did it to us, but there would be no greater gift than to beat their ass in the NFC Championship.
That's it right there.
Risk reward factor. We'll see. The Eagles got to advance too, and that's where me and Scotty are about to go break down this Eagles Giants matchup on DSM pregame live. Guys, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in live and everyone that's going to watch it on replay version. Thank you to everyone who commented. If you guys want to be interactive with either of our shows, Scotty Talks NBA, the Faithful Fanatic Show, Turf Talk with us here, any DSM pregame live, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications on the YouTube channel. It's the best spot to get interactive with all of our hosts here on DSM throughout the shows. For myself, for Scotty, have a great weekend. Enjoy some football, and go Birds.